Hello and welcome to the Beyond Biotech podcast, and this is number 17. And amazingly, we're already into October, so it's time to think about Halloween, pumpkins, Thanksgiving in Canada, and the nights already getting shorter in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm Jim Cornell from Labiotech, and it's good to be home from NLS days, much as I enjoyed it, and the beautiful city of Malmö. Having said that, it was quite wet while I was there. I'm amazed how long it took to upload all the videos onto the computer, maybe because I did so many interviews, and now I have to edit them all. It rained a lot, as I mentioned, and even more when I landed in Edinburgh. There were quite a few accidents on the way home. Usually takes me about 1 hour and 40 minutes, and it took 3 hours. In just 2 weeks, I'll be headed to BioEurope. It's taking place in Leipzig, a city I've never been to before, so I'm looking forward to that, in spite of flying into Berlin and having to take the train. Not looking forward to the 6 a.m. flight, though. We do have 2 interviews related to BioEurope coming up today for you to look forward to, and we're still getting lots of requests to be on the podcast and also for meetings at BioEurope, so that's a good sign. Much better than people asking not to be on the podcast anyway. This week we do have 3 interviews. Our guests are Pam Putz, Managing Director of EBD Group EU, André Hofmann, CEO of biosaxony, and those 2 interviews are about BioEurope and biotech in the host city Leipzig. And then we have a chat with 2 people, Kevin Mills, Chief Scientific Officer at the National Hemophilia Foundation, and Teri Willey, Managing Director of the National Hemophilia Foundation's Pathway to Cures. And of course we also have our weekly call with global commercial real estate services company JLL with Travis McCready. And so let's get to the news you may have missed over at Labiotech.eu. Roche has launched a next-generation SARS-CoV-2 rapid antibody test, Amplify Bio has acquired Pact Pharma's assets, and Poxel has been granted orphan drug designation for its kidney disease treatment. Sierra Space and the University of California, San Diego are going to develop the first stem cell research institute in space. Oxford Biotherapeutics entered into an antibody agreement with Genmab, and Estrella and TradeUp have merged to become a publicly traded company. Canada is injecting $11.1 million into mRNA vaccine technology at the University of British Columbia. The discovery of how metastatic cancer cells infiltrate the liver may lead to new drugs, and the FDA has given a $1.3 million grant to Biologics and Biosimilars Collective Intelligence Consortium. Human First launched the industry's largest decentralized clinical trial database. Ginkgo Bioworks made 2 acquisitions, and those were Alter and Circularis, and Lumen Bioscience data show the company's needle-free spirulina-produced vaccination protects against malaria. Spin-off Biohaven has launched with $258 million. Aspire has been set up to collaborate on amyloidosis, and Intravac is going to develop an intranasal gonorrhea vaccine after receiving a $14.6 million contract. A new biotech company is aiming to bridge the gap between stem cell research and athletic injuries. Big Idea Ventures announced a new cohort of 17 startups, and Lithuania is ready to welcome the biotech sector to the European Forum for Industrial Biotechnology and the Bioeconomy 2022. And you can read all of these and a whole lot more at Labiotech.eu. Right, let's get things started this week with BioEurope. It's a big event featuring one-to-one partnering, exhibitors, presentations, and a whole lot more. I've already got a few interviews set up through their partnering app, so if you're going and you'd like us to interview you, or even if it's just to say hi, then just find us on the partnering app. Before we get an overview of the event itself, the event is going to take place in Leipzig, which definitely has a good biotech cluster. It's in the state of Saxony, or Sachsen in German, and that borders Czechia and Poland. And it not only includes Leipzig, but also Dresden and Chemnitz. So to give us the scoop on the scene in Leipzig and what hosting BioEurope means for the region is André Hofmann, CEO of the biotech organisation biosaxony. All right, so could you tell me a little bit about the association and also about the connection to EBD Europe and the Bio Europe event?
So biosaxony is the local cluster organization here in Saxony, or let's call it in the eastern part of Germany, for biotechnology, medical technology, but also in terms of healthcare. We are the network to talk to. Basically, we do everything from supporting companies in terms of funding to finding staff or even educating staff. Whatever the problem may be, you can talk to us and we will find a solution, or at least find the right partner for you who can come up with a solution. So that's our understanding of this type of work. We have been in contact with EBD for hosting the Bio Europe here for a couple of years now, and we are absolutely happy that it will now happen in October 22. We're really looking forward to that. We have prepared a couple of things for our guests here to give you a better impression also on what the life science branch looks like in Leipzig, especially in Saxony in general.
And what does hosting an event like this involve from your perspective? I mean, how involved are you in the actual putting it together?
We are not part of the main organization, so this is completely up to EBD. But we are for sure, as a local host, in exchange with them. We will have a fantastic joint booth at the exhibition, more than 16 exhibitors from Saxony. And we have a special booth just for the BioCity campus, which is the local hub for life science companies and research institutes that basically will give you an impression of what's going on here. And of course, we will have a couple of sessions within the program where we are in exchange with EBD on how to blend in all the companies and all the research institutes that we have in here.
Okay. And what about BioCity?
The BioCity is the innovation center or incubator where we are located in here in Leipzig. Yeah, it was inaugurated in 2003. And then it harbors a lot of research companies, but also, basically scientific working groups from the university. So there's like 25,000 square meters of lab and office space here. About 5,000 square meters of that is dedicated for the University of Leipzig, where there's 6 professorships located, all working in biotech. And under the same roof, there's now, I think, 35 companies, all coming from the life science business, with a wide range. So we have diagnostic companies here. We have companies here that are dealing with veterinary medicine. We have companies here in our main field, in cell and gene therapies, like Codon, Orbita 34, and others. So this is basically the nucleus of the life science branch in Leipzig. And it's the heart of the BioCity campus, where we have a lot of other research facilities like the Fraunhofer IZI, the Max Planck Institute, and others. And the campus is constantly growing. So BioCity is just the start for companies. So if they are newly funded or incoming from foreign countries, and from there, they move on to other buildings on the campus.
Could you tell me a little bit about the biotech scene in Leipzig? You mentioned the BioCity. Are there other parts of Leipzig that are involved in this, or is it mostly focused on BioCity?
We started late in terms of biotechnology. So around the year 2000, the state of Saxony initiated the so-called Saxon Biotech Initiative. Back then, it was decided that all of the biotech activities should be located on one campus. So this is what they chose here in Leipzig. It's right next to the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. It's also very close to the university clinic. So for the exchange in terms of research projects, there are now some like spin-offs or other locations in Leipzig as well, where life science companies are located, but the main trunk of the companies is here on the campus.
It seems like it's quite a growing sector there in Leipzig then.
Oh yes, it's I think the most dynamic sector that we have here. Let's look at this year. Biosaxony has initiated an accelerator program for smart medical devices and therapies right here on the campus. And it was dedicated for our local companies to help them in terms of regulatory affairs, reimbursement issues, or clinical implementation of their solutions. But in the end, we learned that this is also very attractive for companies from abroad. So beginning of the year, the first 6 participants were joining the program. Out of these 6, there's 4 companies from abroad, coming from Poland, Estonia, US, and Taiwan. And out of these 4, 3 have already set up an entity here in Leipzig to work from here. So this is just what comes out of one of the programs and the platforms that we run here. So yeah, there's a lot of companies coming in. There's a lot of companies spinning out of the university. Yeah, it's getting crowded.
So you'll need to expand soon then.
We are expanding. So at the moment, there's 5 different construction projects on the campus for lab space. So all of them going to the market in 2024, 2026, 27 maybe, because we need the space.
How does Leipzig's biotech industry compare with other hubs in Germany?
We have a strong focus on cell and gene therapies. So when you look back to the days when the first ATMPs came to the market, out of the first 8, 3 had their origins in Leipzig. So Novartis has produced the Hemophilia, for instance, here in Leipzig for a long time now. And it was basically a development they did together with the Fraunhofer Institute for Immunology and Cell Biology. So yeah, this is the one specialty, but we were also looking into other interesting fields now, like the connection with artificial intelligence. So if we are lucky, beginning next year, there will be a new research center that's focusing on the use of artificial intelligence in life science for, let's say, the development of new entities for pharmaceuticals, or also for medical diagnostic purposes. And at the moment, we are initiating some activities around the field of medical 3D printing. So here we are working together with industrial partners like Willey for that. So this is the topics that we try to foster here at the moment.
Bio Europe is a really big event and it's coming to Leipzig. What are you hoping that means for the city itself and also for biotech in Leipzig after the event?
It's like in soccer. I think having Bio Europe here in Leipzig places Leipzig in the European Champion League of the life science hubs. And it gives us an entrance to that level, bringing us on the map. We are expecting that people will come here and see what's going on that would not be here normally, and see that there's a lot of potential for collaborations and other activities. And yeah, biosaxony is here to help with that.
Will there be any opportunity for attendees to kind of go and see what's going on at BioCity?
Yeah, sure. So in the 2 days before Bio Europe, so on Saturday and Sunday, there will be tours. The first tour will even visit Dresden, which is just an hour's drive from here, which is the other biotech hub in Saxony. And the tour on the Sunday will visit a couple of research centers and companies here in Leipzig, most of them, of course, located on the campus of the BioCity. So yeah, there's a large opportunity to meet and greet and talk and have a beer and discuss ideas and topics.
That's a really good overview. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, we are just pretty happy to have the event here, to basically be back and meet in person again. We are really looking forward to that. It's good to be back in person. We will enjoy that.
And now it's to an overview of the event itself with Pam Putz, Managing Director of EBD Group EU. Before we even get to the event itself, as if you could tell me a little bit about EBD Group.
Sure, yes. So EBD specializes in connecting people in the life science industry. And we've done this since 1993 and have been a part of Informa since 2013. We've built our own partnering platform, and this enables us to fulfill our mission both in face-to-face events, but then also, as we've seen, it has been very important to also be able to do this digitally. So we are really facilitating those important connections now, both face-to-face and digitally year-round.
I guess that must have changed a lot because of the pandemic, more online events.
Absolutely. We obviously pivoted everything to digital. over the course of 2020. We've actually been the first partnering event that has taken place digitally right when the pandemic hit in March 2020. So we're particularly proud to have succeeded doing this. But we're also super enthusiastic about going back to face-to-face events now, which I think very clearly we've heard the feedback. The audience is just enjoying more, and clearly also we as a team are enjoying it much more than the digital events.
And so how many events would you be involved with on a regional, global basis?
I want to say that our events take place in different geographies, but in general, they're all focused very globally. And we run 6 annual events, all partnering meetings. We also have a couple of training courses throughout the year, and then added on a couple of just strictly digital products that are maybe more in niche therapeutic areas rather than those big international partnering meetings.
And as far as Bio-Europe is concerned, which is the next big one, at least from our perspective anyway, when did you start working on that one, or is it just a continuous thing?
So for this edition in particular, I want to say everything also due to the pandemic really got messed up and shuffled around quite a bit. I want to say that we probably had the first interaction as early as 2016, maybe even before, to be honest. It usually does take us really a couple of years to go through a bit of a process to figure out who would be hosting the event. It often requires us talking to the government officials as well to see kind of what's the financial impact. And then you really also need to have a very engaged and committed team on the ground on the regional host side as well to make this a big success, because it is a massive project to have in your region and to leverage accordingly.
So could you give me a bit of background on Bio-Europe and, when it started, how it's grown over the years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Would be very happy to, actually, because I think it's a quite interesting story. Maybe to start a bit in the beginning, Bio-Europe was launched in 1995. That's now almost 30 years ago. This will be the 28th edition this year. But when you look back, really the way that the biotechs and pharma engaged with each other has been completely different. I want to actually go as far as say they didn't really talk to each other at all. So we've come a really long way. And EBD's founder, Krola Schropp, at the time had the vision to connect the US biotechs with the German pharma companies. And then together with the Biotechnology Innovation Organization in 1995, initiated this trade mission to Hanover, Germany. And this little event with, I think it was 97 people, really it's the foundation of what Bio-Europe is today. They've had 60 meetings back then that were all done on a sheet of paper, really. So it was no platform as we know it today. So we've come a really long way since the early days and are hoping with this edition now this year in Leipzig to be back to our 2019 edition in terms of size and quality. So we're expecting 4,500 people and are hoping to host close to 30,000 meetings. So it's really become a very different event.
And as far as the venues are concerned, this one's in Leipzig, but how do you choose the venues each time? Because it does rotate. Hopefully it's not shrouded in mystery like the World Cup or anything.
It is a complicated puzzle, if you will. So for us, it's really important to hold the event in biotech hubs across Europe, whether that's established ones or emerging ones, like, for example, Leipzig is this year. And we're also trying our very best to rotate equally between the different geographies in life science hub. So there's really constant interaction with all of those regional stakeholders and balancing this out with very basic things like venue or location availabilities, but then also the bidding process of where to go next. Is there local support there or not for that particular year? Funny enough, really, elections in the different geographies play a huge piece in this. So there's lots of factors that are included in this process.
And I guess you've also got to take into consideration infrastructure and how easy it is to get there and whether there's hotels, that kind of thing.
All of this, absolutely. And the accessibility really always is a big topic, because we are expecting attendees from over 60 countries. So we really want to make sure that it's easily accessible for everyone.
And so what can people expect for the 2022 version?
Well, definitely nobody should miss it. I think that given its global reach, it is really one of a kind event in the European market. And as I said, we're really expecting a lot of international delegates to be there, very high quality top executives. We've seen this also back in 2008. In times of crisis, the value and the importance of partnerships, I think, just comes back onto the plate. And I think with the current bear market upon us, it really does push, again, partnerships back to the top of the list. I think we're all desperate to come back to face, but then a lot has happened over the past 2 years when we've done all of those events digitally. So what we really want to do now is blend the learnings from the digital editions in with the face-to-face experience. And we really want to show progression. So we will be also launching a couple of new initiatives that hopefully create kind of a Buy Europe 2.0 experience.
And so are there any special features that potential visitors should be aware of?
Definitely there are. And one big thing that we're discussing in the team right now is that we expect that everybody will be a bit out of practice, and we've forgotten how intense and exhausting those meetings have always been. So we really will put a very strong emphasis on creating the best possible environment to facilitate all of those conversations, but of course still keeping an eye also on the well-being of the delegates. So to give you a more concrete example, we'll be doing less parallel programming to make sure that people can really focus a lot on the one thing and not constantly be on the run. There will be even more lounge capabilities. We'll be looking at healthy break options, but also a couple of relax corners and stretching programs. Additionally, we know that we are probably between 35 to 40% will be new delegates. So we will be launching a newbie program that takes place on the Sunday before the event starts to get all of those new people introduced to the venue, give them a bit of a sneak preview, best practice sharing to make sure that they really maximize being on site at the event. But also sustainability, of course, is very top of mind for us. We've set ourselves the ambitious goal to reduce the paper waste. And that is really something that requires a bit of a behavior change also from our delegates, where we'd like to encourage them to use their phones to check their partnering schedules versus printing it. We've also launched a new idea, the Bio Europe networking train, together with MC Services and the BioM Munich Biotech cluster. We'll be taking the train from Munich to Leipzig on the Sunday afternoon before the event, together with a range of executives. There's actually still space if somebody wants to book. Come join us and start the networking already on the train, while at the same time we're saving the carbon for not taking the flight. So there's lots of little bits and pieces going on.
And as far as the networking goes, how does the format work for connecting to people?
Yeah, so we open our partnering software, the tech platform, 6 weeks before the event. And that's really the point in time where ideally everybody should start to engage and browse through the list of attendees and their profile. You can then also watch company presentations online or see the sponsor and the showcase company content to really kind of find out what's going on, who will be there, what's there on offer, and start requesting your meetings. Ideally, when you get on site, you will have your packed meeting schedule for the partnering meetings, which is a very formalized process. But then, of course, in between those meetings, there will be all of those informal networking opportunities, whether that is just running into somebody in the hallway or the lunch queues, which we've heard so many times the last couple of years, how people miss queuing for lunch because it is a networking opportunity. So we're obviously bringing that back. We'll be hosting exhibit hall hospitality receptions and also 2 offsite evening events. So there will be lots of those informal meetings in addition to the prearranged partnering.
Are there exhibitors and sort of startups and new product areas, that kind of thing?
We do have an exhibition area, which actually we consider to be the heart of the conference. And that's also how visually the layout, how it's built up with the exhibit hall being in the middle of all of the partnering meetings. But we're not a trade fair, right? So we are a partnering meeting. Therefore, the exhibition is relatively small. We are probably 120 exhibiting companies. And then that's also where all of the food and the lounge stations will be. So our exhibition hall is actually the networking area.
And so who is it aimed at? For everybody from CEO right down to researchers?
It really is primarily, I want to say, the business development and licensing executives. It's really more business focused, not very scientific. But in that range, it's everyone in the value chain of the drug development process, whether that is talking licensing opportunities or just really also building or expanding your network in that community. I think there's a little bit in there for everyone.
Could you give me some of the details, like how people register, the dates, the times?
Yeah, so registration, if you go to our website, bioeurope.com, registration is everything takes place online. The event will be October 24 to the 26th. So it's 3 full days. And then we have a welcome reception already taking place on the Sunday, October the 23rd. And registration will be open on that day as well. So we strongly encourage everybody to arrive on the Sunday, join us for the welcome reception and get all of the registration bits sorted. Yeah, as we said, it's going to be in Leipzig, Germany at the convention center. We open at 8:00 and then it really runs all the way through until 6:00 for partnering. But then there's always an evening programming as well. On Wednesday, we also go all the way back to 5:00. We do have a bit of a different pricing structure also depending on whether it's startup companies, established companies. It would be best to check our website. We do have the early bird fee ending on August 31st. So I think that's definitely a really important deadline to register beforehand.
Do you get companies from around the world attending, or is it mostly just Europe?
No, it really is completely global. So I think we were 61 countries back in 2019. I mean, of course, there's the top companies in Europe definitely in attendance, but we have the highest participation actually from the United States. And then there is a very, very big delegation coming from South Korea and Japan. So it truly is a global meeting.
As I mentioned already, the interview requests for BioEurope are starting to come in. I won't be the only one there. Liza Laws will also be there, and her schedule is filling up as well. And members of our sales team will also be there. So hopefully we'll see you there. Now we have an interview with 2 people hoping to change the state of blood disorder treatments. The National Hemophilia Foundation in the US has announced the launch of Pathway to Cures, or P2C. It's a new venture philanthropy investment fund that's focused on creating transformation in all inheritable blood disorders. To tell us about it are Kevin Mills, Chief Scientific Officer at the National Hemophilia Foundation, who you will hear from first, and Teri Willey, Managing Director of the Foundation's Pathway to Cures. First then, if you could tell me about what you do and about the organization.
The National Hemophilia Foundation is the premier patient advocacy organization in the United States, working on behalf of individuals and their families who are living with blood and bleeding disorders. The National Hemophilia Foundation is celebrating its 75th anniversary of working on behalf of the community next year. Our mission is to ultimately find cures for blood disorders and to address and prevent the complications that are associated with those disorders through promoting research, through promoting patient and healthcare provider education, and through advocacy, policy advocacy, so that we can enable people with blood disorders and their families to thrive.
You mentioned, obviously, it's the national organization. Do you work with a lot of organizations both within the country and a lot of similar organizations in different countries?
Absolutely. We work very closely with many other organizations that represent not only the blood disorders community in the US, but other rare disorders as well. And our mission, although we really serve the US national blood disorders community, we are very integrated with the international community. So we work very closely with other international organizations like the World Foundation for Hemophilia and others. And the goal is to serve the population in the US, but ultimately to serve the needs of everyone everywhere living with blood disorders so that they can have equitable access to care and the resources that they need to live a healthy and full life.
It's not just in the same way as there's 150 or whatever it is, different cancers. I appreciate there's lots of different conditions that you oversee in that respect, but could you give me a little bit of an overview as to the current state of research with blood disorders?
Absolutely. So there are numerous different blood disorders that affect people in different ways. That includes disorders that lead people to have the inability to appropriately clot following an injury or some other incident. It also includes disorders that result in inappropriate clotting. So people can have thromboses inappropriately and have too much clotting. There are disorders also that affect the way that the blood works, that it carries cells or nutrients or oxygen to tissues. All of these disorders affect people in different ways and really impact their ability to fully live their lives and their quality of life. And as you may imagine, there has been tremendous research over the last 7.5 decades that the National Hemophilia Foundation has been in existence to try to understand those disorders. What is the genetic basis for blood disorders? What is the physiology of those disorders? And we've made tremendous progress, but there's still much about healthy blood, what leads to healthy blood, that we don't understand. And so there has been terrific research in the basic science laboratories and in the clinic to try to understand and how to try to treat inheritable blood disorders. There's a wide range of different disorders. So there has been lots of research that has led to a deep understanding of bleeding disorders like hemophilia A and hemophilia B. And over the last few decades, there have been terrific strides in developing new treatments for those disorders, beginning with the ability to make plasma-derived products, so clotting factors derived from human plasma that could be administered to people with bleeding disorders. That has moved into next-generation products that can be manufactured in the laboratory and that people can even administer at home. And now we're on the verge of new therapies for hemophilia, like gene therapies that hold real promise for curing or providing long-term treatment for disorders like hemophilia. Unfortunately, the research and the state of new medicines in many other disorders has lagged behind. There are many rare disorders that affect, 1 in 100,000, 1 in 500,000, 1 in a million people, but are no less serious for the people that are living with those disorders. And unfortunately, there are fewer treatment options and fewer medical options for many of those individuals. And although they are rare, collectively, there are millions of people living worldwide with blood disorders, bleeding disorders, clotting disorders. And the research really needs to catch up for those people so that, as is the case in hemophilia, for example, there are more and better diagnosis and treatment options for those people.
And I guess moving on to the news that you recently had, and that was about P2C. I wonder if you could tell me what that is and what the reasoning is behind setting up P2C.
Yeah, P2C, Pathway to Cures, is a philanthropic venture fund that is set up by the National Hemophilia Foundation as one of the ways to address some of the unmet needs that Kevin referred to. It's an opportunity to really harness the power of the emerging biotech industry, especially in gene therapy and other therapy developments, where there are companies across the country and across the world that have technologies, for advancing therapies that would be relevant to inheritable blood diseases, but for one reason or another, those indications are on the back burner for the moment, and they're advancing other indications with the funding that they have. So as those companies raise money or look for resources, there's an opportunity for us to partner with other investors to invest for equity in those companies to advance those therapies. That is, use of funds in those rounds, at least our funds in those rounds, would be used to take those opportunities and move them toward the clinic or into the clinic. So it's very much a traditional early stage investing approach, but an approach that is very mission oriented and very specific to advancing therapies and other technologies, diagnostics, and so forth for meeting the unmet needs of the patients in our community.
And how is it going to work in terms of the logistics of it? Is it going to be you trying to find companies or putting out calls for people to apply?
I think a little bit of both. So we have a very deep and broad community of key opinion leaders in the field, of industry partners who understand the demands and opportunities in this area, of researchers at academic institutions that are working in this field. And so we'll be harnessing that network to identify opportunities for investment. So we will be reaching out to them to say, help us keep an eye out for things that meet these criteria. And we also expect, initially through our website, there's an opportunity to contact us if there are folks who would like to explore whether or not something that they're working on, a company that is developing technology that would be relevant to this area, it's an opportunity for them to reach out to us and we will take a look at it. So like a lot of early stage venture funds, we will have intake, referred to as deal flow, where we'll be doing early evaluation, talking to those founders and those teams about the opportunity and trying to identify those that we want to do deeper evaluation on.
And do you have criteria? I mean, is it open to university research or does it have to be companies at a specific stage?
Initially, we'll be focusing on companies so that we will have an opportunity to invest in those companies. But we expect that many of those companies will be university spinouts.
Is it just a case of funding them and then letting them get on with it, or will you be actively participating in boards, that kind of thing?
We expect that because this is a community and an industry where we have a lot of experience and connections through the research community with industry partners and so forth, that in addition to investing money, we will bring other types of value, like those relationships, and understanding of what patients need and so forth. Depending on the size of our investment and the stage of the round, there may be opportunities to serve on the board as one of the ways to make sure that our mission is advanced. Always serving on the board, of course, in carrying out what's in the best interest of the company, but keeping an eye on our own mission. We also have a great community of people to pull from also to serve in those board seats, should that be part of the opportunity.
I guess those are quite big advantages for the companies that you're working with to have all of that expertise open to them. Are there any other advantages that they'll get from working with you?
Sure. I think there are really two key advantages that companies will have for working with Pathway to Cures and with the National Hemophilia Foundation, and really two areas where we can really bring something to the table. The first of those is what Teri alluded to, that we have really deep connection into the blood disorders community and into the science and the research and the R&D that's happening in that space. So we will bring those deep connections, that deep scientific understanding of blood disorders, and really a network of experienced researchers, key opinion leaders, R&D experts. So we believe that, working with companies in which we invest, we can bring, not just the investment, but really knowledge capital to the companies and to their programs. The other area that we believe will be advantageous is that we have deep connections into the patient community as well. And we will bring those connections and that understanding of patient needs patient desires and the outcomes of research, patient perspectives, and importantly, patient involvement in the research. So we really believe that it's important, if we're going to meet those unmet needs of the blood disorders community, that the individuals living with the disorders, who are truly the experts in what it's like to have a blood disorder, need to inform the research and the direction of those research outcomes. So we believe that we can bring real advantage to companies' R&D programs by helping to integrate the patient voice into the conduct of the research as well.
Right. And as well as giving out money, I guess you'll be looking to try and build that fund as high as you possibly can. What's the strategy for that?
It's traditional donor fundraising in one respect, but also in identifying individuals and organizations that also have a strong mission in this regard. And it's an opportunity for them to contribute through donating to the P2C fund and to track the progress of the fund as a result of that donation. That is the portfolio of opportunities that we build, and very much will be their portfolio from an observer and participation standpoint. But again, it's a donation, and any realizations from equity or any returns from our investments go back into the fund to advance the mission of bringing these important discoveries to patients in a meaningful way. We hope to be announcing soon a lead officer that will be helping us with this type of fundraising. But it's an exciting opportunity, and it's the type of gift that keeps on giving, in that we put it into the pool of capital for investment. Then as we make returns, those returns, instead of going back to limited partners, as is the case in traditional funds, go back into the P2C fund for advancing the mission of addressing cures for inheritable blood disorders.
Sounds like an absolutely great opportunity for companies and for investors as well. And I guess the bottom line is people. How do you think this is going to affect research and people's lives? And how hopeful are you in terms of timelines? Obviously, you can't be exact, but how soon do you think that this will start to show real impact?
Well, we hope it starts to show impact from the time we engage with the individual companies, because of the types of expertise and knowledge capital that Kevin referred to. But development of therapeutics and diagnostics do take time. So if we are advancing things into the clinic or toward the clinic, those learnings, those advances are available to the entire community in a way because of the advancement. But it can take, 8 to 10 years to take something from a preclinical stage and get it into the clinic. But we've also seen cases where that's shortened because of good outcomes in the clinic.
Sounds really good. I'm hoping that you'll have lots of press releases coming out about some of the, not only the funding, but some of the successes over the next little while as well. It would be great.
It's always tricky to manage expectations when it comes to these things, but you've got to get started.
And we're really looking to have impact with this fund by investing in and supporting technologies that really are truly transformational, that have the potential to really change the lives of people, many of whom have very few options currently, that are living with inheritable blood disorders. And the name of the fund, Pathway to Cures, is very intentional, that our ultimate goal is to achieve cures for these disorders so that people can really live without the complications of a blood disorder. So we're really looking for real transformation.
That's a good point, Kevin. And one of the missions here too is to, through our investment, de-risk opportunities so they are more attractive to other investors. It takes a lot of capital to advance these things through the clinic. So a big part of our mission is to take these transformational ideas, put them into a position where they are attractive to other investors. Now, if people would like more information, look for, all one word, pathwaytocures.org. It's our new website, and there's a lot of good information there as well. And if you'd like to contact us, you can contact us through the website.
Hopefully, we will have some good news in the future from that great initiative. And now we head across to JLL to see what Travis McCready has for us this week in his commentary. Hi, Travis.
Hey, Jim. There's an old adage that goes something to the effect of, "Blessed are those who plant trees knowing that they shall never sit in the shade of their foliage." The sentiment, which seems to have as many variations as there are societies and cultures in the world, is meant to establish as community ideal the forward-looking wisdom and beneficence that comes from a selfless present tense act. It's in that spirit that the world heaped hearty praise this week on a new crop of Nobel Prize winners, with particular attention paid to Dr. Carolyn Bertazzi, jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for her pioneering work in bioorthogonal chemistry. Dr. Bertazzi's perspective and work underscore a reality of this life sciences industry. It will be years, perhaps even decades, before discoveries or new fields like click chemistry and bioorthogonal chemistry find their way into commercial application and ultimately the hands of patients. Along the way, however, these new fields of research have the power of transforming lives, not just through science, but through creating new industries, the new need for buildings and infrastructure, even whole new job categories and education pedagogy. Take, for example, the entire field of cell and gene therapy, the roots of which can be traced back to the 1970s, and among others, Dr. Philip Sharp of MIT and his pioneering work in RNA splicing, for which he won a Nobel Prize in 1993. Certainly, Dr. Sharp's work led to co-founding Biogen, the oldest independent biotech company in the United States, as well as two other leading RNA tech-based companies, Alnylam Pharmaceuticals and Moderna Pharmaceuticals. Indeed, the legacy of his work can be seen in the very COVID-19 vaccines that were developed and distributed over the past 2 years. The full canopy of this work is much broader, though. According to the Alliance for Regenerative Medicine's most recent analysis, today there are over 1,300 cell and gene therapy developers worldwide, capturing over $6.6 billion in investment annually. JLL tracks over 162 million square feet of leasable lab space in the United States alone, and given where so much of the subsequent generations of DNA and RNA research took place, it's no surprise that nearly 20% of that lab space is located in the greater Boston area today, where only a couple of million existed 20 years ago. Click chemistry and bioorthogonal chemistry can open up new pathways for more easily and precisely synthesizing molecules, including within the cell itself. It's a significant step forward for drug development and studying disease, particularly cancer. For Dr. Bertazzi, the approach already serves as a foundation for a half dozen companies in which she is involved, and the community will watch as those companies grow to scale. Perhaps more importantly, Dr. Bertazzi, only the 7th female laureate to be recognized by the Academy in its history, was quick to give praise to the many postdocs and students she has mentored over the years, saying, "I know that whatever my lab can contribute to the world, it's a sliver compared to the totality of what my mentees will contribute to the world. Consider that a new row of trees planted that will sustain this industry for years to come. And for that, we wish Dr. Bertazzi the sincerest of congratulations." Thanks, Jim, and back to you next week.
Great, thanks a lot, Travis. We will catch up with you again next week. Travis McCready is the leader of JLL's Life Science Markets Advisory practice in the Americas, working closely with the global and scaling life sciences companies, developers and investors to achieve breakthroughs. He has more than 25 years of experience spearheading successful ventures related to technology and innovation, including as president and CEO of a $1.6 billion life sciences funding agency. And that's another podcast done. Maybe I will see you at Bio Europe. I'm just hoping the weather is nice in Germany. The forecast here is for 2 weeks of rain, so I'm going to be a bit annoyed if I have 2 weeks of rain and then get more of it in Leipzig. I'm looking forward to doing a little exploring the day before the event as well, which I need to do a little bit of research for, so I'm not aimlessly wandering around and miss all the good bits. I'll also check to see if there is any sport on while I'm there, but there rarely is. When I was younger and I went on a trip, I'd always check out the music and sports stores. Now that I have a child, it's toy stores. How times change. So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast and that wherever in the world you are, you have a great week ahead and you'll join us next time for another Beyond Biotech.